Welcome to FinStechs from Laura and Anthony.
Hi there.
So, recent events overseas have really, put international security challenges right back in the spotlight.
Absolutely. It's a complex situation.
It really is. And it gets you thinking about, well, what are the potential responses? What actions might actually be considered when things like this happen?
Yeah, there's a whole spectrum of possibilities, isn't there?
Exactly. So today, we thought we'd explore some of those potential measures,
Mm.
looking at everything from military options to diplomatic strategies. We'll draw on some expert analysis, looking at past situations and, current thinking.
Sounds good. Where should we start? Maybe the military side.
Yeah, let's dive into that first. What kind of military actions are typically considered?
Well, one thing that often comes up is the idea of limited military strikes, those surgical strikes we heard about.
Right, like in 2016 and 2019, across the line of control.
Precisely. Targeting specific militant camps, usually in Pakistan-administered Kashmir. And, analysis from people like Professor Raghavan suggests there's often significant public and political pressure within India for at least that kind of response after major incidents.
So the goal isn't full-scale war, but more like signaling, sending a message.
Exactly. It's about showing resolve, making a statement, but trying, keyword trying, to avoid escalating into a much larger conflict.
Okay. And then there's the option of airstrikes, presumably more targeted.
Yes, precision airstrikes. Think along the lines of the Balakot operation back in 2019. The idea there is hitting specific suspected terrorist infrastructure.
And trying very hard to avoid civilian casualties, I imagine, to limit the fallout.
That's the crucial part. Minimizing civilian harm is key to trying to manage the risk of things spiraling, but of course any military action like that.
It carries a big risk of retaliation.
Absolutely. Airstrikes definitely raise the stakes compared to more limited ground actions.
And we also hear about ongoing fire along the landscape, don't we? Artillery, small arms.
Yeah, that's almost like a persistent background noise sometimes, unfortunately. It's a sort of low-level, constant engagement.
Jervis is immediate retaliation, maybe? Or just keeping up the pressure?
Both, potentially. It's immediate signaling, it's sustained pressure, but the danger there is always miscalculation.
One side pushes a bit too hard, the other responds more forcefully.
And things can escalate quickly, even from that low level. It's a constant risk.
Okay, so given those risks with direct military action, what about other types of pressure? Economic measures? Diplomatic?
Right. Those are definitely part of the toolkit. You're looking at non-military ways to exert pressure.
Like what specifically?
Well, things like potentially suspending the Indus Waters Treaty have been mentioned in the past, or closing borders, maybe expelling diplomats, stuff like that.
The intention being just to ramp up the pressure on Pakistan.
Exactly. Increase the cost politically and economically.
But didn't Pakistan warn about the Indus Waters Treaty specifically? I seem to remember reading that messing with that could be seen as, an act of war.
You're right to bring that up. Yes, that warning has been issued. It's a stark reminder, really.
That even non-military actions aren't risk-free. They can have serious consequences and escalate things too.
Precisely. It shows how interconnected everything is. It's a very delicate balancing act. Nothing happens in a vacuum.
So beyond the economic and diplomatic, what about less visible actions? Covert stuff?
That's another layer. Covert operations. You're talking about intelligence agency activities, maybe special forces missions.
Aimed at what? Disrupting networks?
Yeah, disrupting militant networks, gathering intelligence, possibly even targeting specific key individuals involved in terrorism.
Which obviously comes with its own huge set of risks if things go wrong or get exposed.
Absolutely. High risk, high deniability, often.
And in our modern world, there's another angle too, isn't there? The cyber domain.
Ah, yes. Cyber operations. That's increasingly part of the playbook for state actors.
How might they be used in this kind of scenario?
Well, you could see cyber attacks aimed at critical infrastructure, maybe disrupting command and control systems, communications networks.
Basically causing disruption and confusion without, dropping bombs.
Sort of. It's a way to exert influence, create problems, gather intelligence. It's a modern tool of statecraft or conflict, depending on how it's used.
So if we step back, there's quite a range. Limited strikes, airstrikes, that constant lot-C firing, then the economic levers, diplomatic moves, and these more hidden covert and cyber actions.
It really paints a picture of the complex decision-making involved. There are so many potential options, each with its own benefits, risks, and potential consequences.
Which brings us back to that core challenge, doesn't it? How does any country in this situation signal its resolve respond firmly.
while trying desperately not to trigger a much wider, potentially catastrophic conflict.
Yeah. It's an incredibly fine line to walk, a real high-stakes balancing act.
No easy answers, that's for sure.
Well, thanks for walking us through those potential responses. It gives a clearer picture of the options and the dilemmas.
Let's discuss it.
And for you listening, maybe something to think about is, how do these different types of responses, like the military, the economic, the cyber, not only aim for an immediate effect, but also how do they play into the much longer-term geopolitical game? What are the ripple effects?
That's a great question to ponder.
Indeed. Okay, that's all we have time for today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.